Roll call.
Ms. Mucko?
Here.
Mr. Olson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Erkins?
Here.
Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll move on. Did want to take a moment to pay tribute to our beloved High Clock. As you can see, we have an amaryllis. Every winter. So, as you're all aware, High passed away earlier this month. This is presence and good humor greatly. I'm not sure how to pay tribute and summarize an extraordinary life in a few short comments. So I know this won't be adequate reflection on the impact that he made. I had the privilege of getting to know, as we both ran for office in 2017 and in the years since, I found him to be a great wealth of knowledge and understanding guidance. I was the epitome of servant leadership. He served the board for nearly 12 years, while also serving 3 years in the Idaho House of Representatives and as president of the Idaho Humane Society. We all know his love for animals, including his beloved dog Blue. He championed Idaho's pet-friendly team license plate with proceeds going to the Idaho Humane Society. To say that he'll be missed is a vast understatement. He left a void. We can only celebrate his life and send our love to his wife, family, and friends. Anybody else?
Like to, but I don't think I can keep it together like you did, so.
Anybody? Just some housekeeping. We've postponed the work session and executive session to the January meeting. So the meeting on the 19th of January will be at 1 p.m. We'll also need to schedule a special board meeting to appoint a new board member. That'll happen sometime between now and early January. We'll be in touch to establish a date and time. You would be able to participate remotely.
January 5th
January 5th.
is the deadline, so. If the board members would be willing to send me their availability, that first few days of January, and then not sure how you all want to handle that process, but if I can get an availability schedule from all of you for that first week of January, the 2nd through the 5th, so that we can get maybe something on the calendar. And again, we can do it Zoom. I mean, if you're talking about a special meeting to appoint a member. Yes, sir. Sorry. Yes. So again, we can do it out on the phone, right? Zoom. Absolutely. I'll be here. If anybody else wants to be here, that's fine. But I'm gonna make sure I'm following the rules here.
Exactly right.
So I'll be here, and then whoever else wants to be here can be here. And whoever that individual is, we have to swear in that day too.
Well, we have 30 days, so yeah, whatever that day or.
Well, we have to appoint, but to swear in, can we wait till the January meeting to swear in? Or?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I think we have the flexibility to do that. But
Okay, so if we have the executive session to appoint a new member, and then do the swearing in January, no one else really, I guess no one has to be here as long as we have everybody else at least available, that would be great.
All right, on to approval of the minutes dated November 17th, 2022.
No temporary.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. It's approved. On to the monthly activity and finance report at Anne Marie.
Great. Members of the board, want to celebrate just a phenomenal year and try to put a little bit in perspective. I tried to do this a little bit last month, but you know, the year-end numbers are in now. And again, just sort of draw a correlation of where we were this time last year and the huge swing that we saw just since then. Just a couple of quick highlights. You know, year over year, last year we ended 2021 at $5.5 million in revenue. And that was pretty much all done from May through September. October is when Delta hit, the Delta variant hit. So we saw a huge fallout in November, including Festival of Trees. And then December, we saw fall apart. We did hardly any revenue in December last year, which obviously was the start of the fiscal year. As I mentioned before, we started the year $270,000 behind budget because of that. We had 161 employees on payroll at this time last year, but hardly anybody was working. This year we had 210, and I could have used another 30. Our culinary team is down about 5 still. You know, we're actually being able to do up to 1,000 people now. We've got the FCA Fellowship of Christian Athletes coming up on Monday, and you know they wanted 1,000. We held them at 800, opened it up, and they're still sitting just over 800. So, but the cool thing is we have the service capability to make that happen now, which has been quite a while in coming. Food revenues last year they were 1.1 million for the year. And this year we finished up 3.3 million. So again, when I talk about the culinary team, the service team, what they've been facing, and again, this is really February through November. I mean, again, December we started out, it was empty. January was a decent January, but this really started in February. Our AV revenue, we broke the $1 million mark in AV for the first time ever. We finished up the year $1.5 million, and just audio visual last year was $650,000. So again, that department, Chris Morrison, who we're losing to retirement, has built a tremendous team. And I want to recognize those guys. They've just done it, men and women both. I mean, just that entire team has done a great job. Chris has taken a very active participation in trying to upsell to our clients. There are several clients who used to use other AV companies as contractors, and now they're using our in-house AV. And our AV folks have been delivering. Profit margins, we ended the year at 21.13%. Our budget was 19 and on our margin. So, and last year was 21.6. So again, the last 2 months were both $1 million months for the first time ever in the history of the center. We were $1.5 million in October. We were $1.1 million-ish in November. So again, 2 months in a row, kind of tells you. And again, we filled in some business after all this fall, but that was with me cutting back, taking business in May for the fall. So we did that in spite of those decisions, which were still the right decisions. But as we saw, we had staffing for the fall, we were able to take more. Capital improvements of the budget that we had, we didn't spend $678,000 capital side, but because of the way that we reallocated our capital expenditures last year, and this was after we did the budget, anything, you know, it used to be anything over $1,000 was considered capital. We changed that to be anything over 5,000 based on the auditor's advice. So we ended up spending out of operations $550,000 that normally would have been capital. So our that doesn't show necessarily on the gross margin side, but on the net profitability side, it definitely does. So again, the facility operations were negatively impacted by almost $500,000 because of decisions we made. We still would have ended up spending the money regardless, you know, when you net it out, but it's just how it's accounted for. But we had to reallocate $128,000, or we carried over $128,000 for projects that were started in 22 that we're carrying forward in 23. Temporary service labor. This is kind of an interesting number to me. we budgeted $26,000 for the year, which was about what we've seen in the past. We actually spent $186,000 in temporary service labor. Which is in the way, the reason that it's an interesting number is because we've continually tried to fill positions throughout the year, and we still have positions open. But the mentality of a lot of the workers now who they want to call when they work. And so a lot of this is Bacon. If you've heard of we use the app Bacon, BACON. And so people can go on, they can sign up for shifts that are available, work when they want, show up, do the job, and Bacon pays them within 2 days. So they get instant gratification. They get to pick and choose when they work and what jobs they take. And there's several industries that are on Bacon. So, but a lot of those workers, they really enjoy working here. A lot of them were repeats. We hired a couple of them actually, but they wanted the flexibility. They didn't want to get tied to a schedule. And obviously we need people who are tied to schedules, but as we were busy and filling in. So we continue to look at that, but through our payroll system, we're looking at being able to pay or give employees options on being able to get some portion of their paycheck sooner than payday. It's certainly not new, but it's something we're looking at because again, today's workforce, that's something they're looking at. So it's interesting to have to adapt to that. So anyway, I just thought I'd share a couple of those because I think it's important for the board to understand the nature of the team that we have and how adaptable they've been and flexible given the demands we've had. And that's why I'm so proud to work with them. And I'm proud to tell you, I mean, we finished up the year and we'll speak more to this, but we finished up the year at $9 million for the first time. We had an $8.1 million budget. And we started out the year $250,000 behind the 8 ball. So that tells you the kind of year we had from February through November. And the fact that, you know, we haven't really lost anybody. The team hung in there. And again, that's why I can't speak highly enough about the team that we have. So anyway, it's kind of fun to share those kind of stats. So Williamson and the district achieved record revenue years. Room tax actually was $10.447 million. Lowest all the way, and but market conditions are unbelievable. So, and in 2022, this was 206. We actually hired 4 more since we did this. Compared to 240 pre-COVID. Festival of Trees was a great success and wonderful to have back. I've spoken to several people I've run into walking downtown or even, you know, weirdly enough, just shopping on weekends who attended Festival of Trees and, you know, they were raving about it. We were at the Army Navy game last Saturday out at the Warhawk Museum and several people who were there were about 200 people in attendance. And several people were coming up and telling me how it was great because they had a Thanksgiving tradition back. They loved the fact that the festival was willing to do it. The dinner went off without a hitch. Again, we served 800 for dinner that night and had lots of compliments on the dinner and the whole festivities. So anyway, it's great to have them back. Jill Doppy was extremely pleased. We talked to her and she was excited. So great relationship, great partnership on that. So we're really excited that it was back. We're going to be dark from the 19th. Well, we serve breakfast for 800 in the morning of the 19th, and then we're dark until the 5th. The governor's event happens the 7th, but the teams will be back in on the 5th, getting set up, and the kitchen teams can be prepping. But I'll tell you, the building and the people need a break, and I'm really pleased that we were able to keep that time frame open. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy Hanukkah and happy holidays. So, speaking of festival, great success. Our logistics committee, internally, we have a philosophy of logistics, and it's wowing the customer while working with logistics. And we've talked about the name before, but we have a committee of employees who work together to put different events on. Well, Cliff leads the charge. Cliff is amazingly creative. And so he coordinated the logistics team this year. The theme of the tree was celebrating Yellowstone Park's 150th anniversary. And so the team came in on Sunday. They decorated when everybody else was decorating their trees as well. And the tree sold for $2,700. So again, that was all volunteer effort on behalf of our team, and he helped make all the ornaments, did a lot of it by hand. So again, the creativity is pretty amazing. Obviously, the trees and the table setup. We do philanthropic opportunities for the community throughout the year. I try to speak to them as we do them. But last year we did a bunch of turkeys for the rescue mission to serve, and this year they didn't need that. But instead, our team was asked to do stuffing. So that's our executive sous chef, Steve Lively, and that 350 pounds of stuffing mix, 60 pounds of diced celery, 60 pints of chicken stock, and then Steve's special seasoning. So again, it's a small part that we play in helping the community, not just we do here, but volunteer efforts as well. And I don't have the exact amount of food, but I think we donated almost 3,000 pounds of food to the rescue mission this year. So again, our food doesn't go to waste. Our team certainly shares in it, but we try to donate as much as we can. That's what 350 pounds of stuffing looks like. They ate it all, from what I hear. Visitors Center. These are the last numbers you'll see on the Visitors Center. We've transferred, we've closed our Visitor Center. The chamber opened theirs. We saw it as a duplication of efforts. We talked to the city who actually owns that space. They're not quite sure what they're going to do with it yet. But again, they own that space, so we're no longer in the visitor center business. But again, it's fun to see the results of the visitors. Obviously, most of Idaho, there were no tournaments or anything going on that would have drawn a lot of out of state here. It would have been interesting to see what the Great Potato Bowl would do. Normally, you see an uptick in December because of the folks who are staying downtown and wandering around. Plus, there are activities out in the plaza. As part of that, the Mash Bash is out there Monday night. So we have the breakfast here Monday morning, and then they're out on the plaza Monday evening. Great picture on this one. Great year end. Again, record revenues on both sides. The capital needs, I want to make sure that I bring that up, because as we take a look at some of the projects in East, we had a capital meeting yesterday, and the scheduling of trying to get contractors in and trying to order carpet and that sort of thing. We're planning in 23, but some of it might get pushed into 24. So you're going to see some pretty big capital numbers probably for next year as well. But that's why I keep putting that $10 million up there to remind everybody that there are projects on the books that we're looking at over the next 2 to 3 years that again, are going to be a little spendy because we're going to have to do some upgrades. It's time. I mean, amazingly enough, 7 years open in East Arbor. So pretty phenomenal to think about. So the number of events, total events, 254. Excited about the event days, 439. Some people have looked at it and asked, well, how can you have more days, event days, than there are days in the year? And it's because we have multiple events, several days during the year, and most conventions are 2.9 days, so almost 3 days alone. So, not far off of what our goal was. We don't have a lot of control over the number of people or the number of events necessarily. We have to manage that throughout the year. And as we've talked before, sometimes it's not the number of events, it's the quality of the events. So you can have fewer events, but do a whole lot more revenue, or have a lot more people. It just depends on what's in house. Again, not far off on the year-end goal. I mean, down 10,000, given the big scope of what we do, and again, the nature of the events that we have. I'm proud of the numbers that we produced, even though against quote unquote goal fell a little short. But when you see the success on the revenue side, I think there's lots of ways you can look at the metrics. But I'm proud of the team. I'm proud of what we did this year, and I like the numbers. You can look in your packets at this. We went to a Survey Monkey concept now for our evaluations, and we have gotten so many event evaluations back. And quite frankly, I mean, if any of you ever want to see the feedback, the actual feedback that we get on these forms, I'm happy to share them with you. But in fact, I encourage you to ask Pam to get copies of them. They show the good, bad, and ugly. And quite frankly, there's not hardly any bad comments on those. We don't whitewash it. We show it as it is, and we send it out to the entire team. So I'm just, like I said, I'm really proud of the team, and the feedback that we've gotten on the events have been nothing short of tremendous. So I'm very, very happy to share those if anybody's ever asked. Occupancy and ADR, again, strong numbers there. You know, we're down as a percentage the prior year, and we're below 2019 levels on occupancy month to month. But again, from a demand side, it's still strong, and rates are well above historical norms. So we're breaking records on, well, we're not, but the hotels are breaking records on ADR, and it's good to see. The market continues to be strong. Same thing on the revenue side, total revenues, top 10 in history. I mean, Anne Marie's done a great job in recapping where we've been, you know, up 19% from last year, up 15% of revenues from 2019. And the rooms, and I like this note that she put in, because hotels right now are stable. We've had you know, a couple of closed in the last year and then a couple of opened, but overall the market stability is there. The numbers are just looking great. So Allie and your team, they finished up at 65 conventions this year. We did a little celebration yesterday with the CVB. We built in to the 22 contract some incentives if they exceeded the goals that we had set out for them. They exceeded them based on the size of some of the groups that they helped refer over and work with us on. Next year, we're sitting at 75 conventions. So, you know, there's ongoing dialogue between Allie and the event team. I mean, literally weekly, sometimes daily, but weekly, and every month we look ahead 18 months. So, in fact, Allie and I were talking today about how, you know, in some markets, some of the meeting planners, and Kristen, you probably have some insight into this as well, but some of the bigger markets, the meeting planners are actually holding off. Those that would book out 3 to 5 years are holding off, thinking that the market's going to turn, that it's going to go back to a buyer's market rather than a seller's market, because other markets are seeing the same thing we are in hotel rates. There's a couple of cities on the West Coast that it looks like they might be starting to buy business because their reputations have been really negatively impacted. And so some of the groups that we've actually bid on, we've been undercut. Number one, our rates have certainly increased, but it's going to be interesting to watch over the next year how that fluctuates and what the market conditions tell us. So something we're keeping an eye on, but we continue to be in demand in the market. We talked about some opportunities we might have moving forward with the CVB and getting creative on how we can work with some of the bigger groups that have a lot of food and beverage and ancillary revenue for the center. How creative we can get to actually help incent those groups still to come here by working with the hotels. And so a lot more to come on that, but we had some really good dialogue this morning on that. So I think some things will work. Again, the mid-size conventions, I mean, you hear this every month, mid-size conventions are our bread and butter and will continue to be. Okay. Have your own.
As Pat said, we had a great November for both the center and the district, and we've had a great year. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Our transfers are under budget for the Boise Center by 1.4 million. 0.6 or 600,000 was in operating transfers, so we had 600,000 less than budget in operating transfers, and we were 700,000 under budget for capital. Some of those capital items have moved over. We've moved to 2024. So that we'll see, you'll see it in, or you approved it for the 2023 budget. About the 3 categories that were over budget, and like only 3 was the computer support. And that is because we've taken a lot of our software and moved to software as a service, which is tends to be more expensive because you have a monthly subscription rather than just buying the software, but it also keeps the software up to date, keeps everybody current, and also enables people to work remotely from home, whether they're sick or during budget season when everybody's trying to get on. So insurance was higher. Insurance Inc., we did a bid when we did with Cincinnati, and the rates were bid for 3 years. So the normal rates did not increase. What increased was our market value of our real estate. So when the market value of our real estate increased, then the total premiums for our insurance increased. We've also added some terrorist insurance, some cyber risk insurance. We have added some earthquake insurance. So just more insurance in different areas to make sure that we have the coverage in the event something tragic or dramatic would happen. And then, as Pat indicated too, with recruiting, it's been a hard time. So we had some recruitment expenses that we didn't anticipate due to the market. Are there any questions on this piece of it? A couple things that aren't on here is Pam Carpenter or Zuha now, is moving to events. So she will be in this position now just through the end of December. And we're recruiting for somebody to replace her. She'll still be here, but we're gonna miss her.
She's moving to the second floor.
And then we also started the implementation for Questica. I talked a little bit about that last month. That's a new budgeting system that we're implementing. It'll take us about 3 to 4 months to get all the implementation done, but we've started on that and are working on getting numbers, and it's going to be quite a big project, but we're excited to get it done. On our combined revenues and expenses, you can see as Pat indicated, we're $7.6 million over in revenues on a combined basis. Our expenses were increased by 4.1 million over 21. And as a result, our revenue over expenses was 3.5 million higher than last year. And most of that comes from the district, which shows the $2.3 million variance at the bottom there. And then the center added the 1.4 million. In memory of high, cash declined $54,000 due to our investment in aquatics. We ended up $2 million over budget in our cash due to tax revenues, and we ended up $2.4 million over budget in cash in total. There we go. All right, the financial highlights. I already went over the transfers. I mean, this shows what we've been saying all along, that we had a great year. Our tax revenues are $2.5 million over budget. You can see we hit about September, we hit budget, and so the last 2 months were gravy. Our operating revenue trend, in the past, this has been a line chart, but I thought it might be easier for you to see this since it matches the same style as the district. So anyway, we just presented a little different, but you can see that we our revenues were 8.9 million and we had $8.1 million budgeted. And then I just added some labels and stuff so you could kind of see where the ups and downs were going, and the causes of those ups and downs. One of the things to notice, if you look in 2013, and I've got it circled, I call it the dog days of summer. And you can see that even going through 14, 15, 16, and then you can see with, when we added the Boise Center East, we started getting more revenue in those summer months. And if you look in 2022, you can see there really wasn't that compression or lack of revenue in those months near like what you would see and we saw historically. And that is because of the demand for the center, and people call and we don't have the space available, so then they'll move to one of those months where we do have space available. So the demand has allowed us to fill the center more than we have been able to in the past. And November was $1 million month. We've only had, these are the only $2 million months we've had. We missed it last year in October by $3,000. But $1 million month for us is pretty amazing. This is our utilization. I have updated this for 2013, and that's the blue area that's in the back part. You can see that November was significantly higher in utilization than the prior year, but you can see with the events that we have on the books that we're already above some of the months from this year. We have some months to still fill in, and that always happens. October and November and even September fill in a little later, but we've got a pretty good utilization going forward. We were at 99% of 2019 levels this past year, so and we're at 81% of 2022. So it's looking like we're pretty solid for next year. The aquatic center, we received the rent of $7,800. We had budgeted $21,000, and that's because of the construction time has extended out, so the rent has stayed at the same level. And that causes our net income to be under budget due to the revenue. And then so in November, ICA paid 100% of construction costs, where the prior month we had paid 100%. And I just wanted, the graph below is showing you just how the money has broke out for ICA in the project for 2022. And so we spent $1.9 million to purchase the real estate, $1.9 million to purchase the building, and then another $2.9 million to fund construction. And we have another committed $2.6 million for 2024. And I wanted to just summarize up our investments since we've made the transfer over to Clearwater. So this is how much we have investments. We moved an additional $2 million in cash over. And so they're working on getting that invested. Jody had asked last month, I believe it was, what if we were in that lower tier. We're still in the 15 basis points. In order to get down to the 10 basis points, we have to be up to 20 million, and we're at 18.3. So we've not moved all the cash over because we know that we need cash for the $2.6 million commitment to ICA. So we'll probably leave it at that level until we get through construction.
Madam Chair, so we have agreements in place now with Schwab.
Yes, everything is done, and we're trading, and we're getting reports, and we're reconciling. And yeah.
And we just signed their standard deal. Mike, did you look at it?
I don't think I
I think we did.
did. We?
Yeah.
Well,
He's
Madam
looked at
Chair,
so
Madam
many.
Chair, I apologize. I may have, but it just is not coming to me that I did, but or you may have sent it to Adam, but I don't recall looking at anything from Schwab, and that does not meet.
It wouldn't have been from Schwab, it would have been from Clearwater
Oh,
Advisors.
oh, the Clear, I did look at Clearwater agreements a few months ago. It's been a while, but yes, I did look at the Clearwater agreements, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to comment that this project is a typical Anne Marie deal. When she decides to do it, she moves right at it and gets it done beautifully and is not intimidated by moving big numbers on short notice.
Thanks, Judy.
Nice job.
Thank you. I've added to this our duration. So our duration is 0.8. And what that means is that if interest rates would change 1%, we would lose the bond price changes given a 1% change in rate. So if it would drop $1, or if interest rates would go up 1%, it would drop 81% in value. But what the duration really shows is it takes the full maturity of our portfolio and says, what's our average maturity? So the average maturity of our portfolio right now is 0.8 years, which is pretty short term. We had the 2 million that came in, we went ahead and invested that out to 3 years. You won't see that in this one. So we're working, it will start stretching that duration out a little bit. We do have enough money coming up to mature in the next 6 months to cover our commitments, as well to ICA. So we have the cash anyway available for that. We have an average credit rating of a AAA. I showed here just wanting everybody to know that obviously in fixed income investing, when rates go up, the market value of your investment drops because it's a fixed income investment. So this shows what in 1 month we lost, or we had a gain of 44,000, but overall year to date, our total unrealized loss is 414,000. Their unrealized gains, which I guess is what I'm really, the point I'm trying to make, which means we would only recognize those losses if we liquidated the portfolio or sold an investment before maturity. That's the way we've got it structured, and we've been working with Clearwater to make sure it's structured so that money comes available from matured investments so that we're not doing early sales of investments. So as long as we hold those to maturity, we should never lose $1 because it'll sell at par or when it matures. Any questions about that?
So does the 18 include the 2 that you're speaking of?
It includes 2 million, yes. Okay. And then these were just an example of 2 of the reports that I can get off of Clearwater Analytics. That in the past, if I wanted a report like this, I would have had to have created it. And they also have a compliance overview, and that's the screen on the far right, that if they go buy an investment, they put our investment parameters in, and if they buy something that doesn't match our investment parameters, it'll show right there that it's non-compliant. So then we have an opportunity to visit, figure out why it's non-compliant, and whether we need to correct that or not. So these are, again, just a couple of great tools that we're excited to have from Clearwater. Any questions? Okay. That was not my part of it.
Any questions for Pat or Anne Marie?
I'd move approval of the finance
Second.
director's.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Monthly activity and financial report is approved. On to other business. Right. Sweat.
Madam Chair, Directors, thanks for having us back. Just here for a little bit of update, obviously answer any questions you have. Like the rest of you, want to take a minute to thank Director Clark for his willingness to commit to this project and to to make my job a little bit harder each month when I came in, going to have to answer his questions. Always fun to work with him, and he'll certainly be missed. So big thank you to Dr. Clark. One thing I wanted to, I'm going to let Nick talk. I'm kind of putting him on the bus here for a second, but as you know, we kind of mentioned some work with the CDB, and Nick's taken the opportunity to do the same thing and had a gentleman out with USA Water Polo. I think I'm going to stumble on my words, but just want to kind of share that we're continuing to work with these organizations as well to make sure that we're up and when we're up and running, we're using all the resources we have at hand.
Yeah, so Lucas out of the Visitors Bureau, Convention Visitors Bureau, has been a huge help for us since he started working with CVB. Helped us with the hotel block setup for sectionals and the age-group zone meet. Went to a conference over the summer, met a gentleman who is the executive director of event planning for USA Water Polo. Gentleman is from the Bay Area. Drove up this week just to sort of see the project, and we went on a tour for about 45 minutes of the facility on Wednesday, I believe it was. He loved what he saw. He said it was more than enough seating, more than enough room, more than enough pool space to host major events here. You know, nothing obviously firm and on the books, but it mentioned a couple of things that I grew up doing and know that are major events, and a couple of things that I grew up knowing about and knew that are major events, and said that he would love to bring those things here. So we'll continue those conversations. We'll continue to stay in touch with this gentleman who also offered to get us some water polo equipment through USA Water Polo just to sort of get ourselves started out here. Community itself is a very small community and likes to help see the sport grow. So it's exciting to see these guys coming up. Just as we said, the pool's not even completely built yet. And this guy came up from the Bay Area for 3 days to come see Boise, see the hotels, see the, you know, convention center, see the restaurants in the downtown area, see how far it was from certain hotels from the airport, and then came out, spent about 45 minutes on the facility site, walked around. Was pretty impressed with everything. As you know, pretty much everybody we bring out there is pretty blown away with the size of the facility and what we've got coming.
So I'll just go run through a few updates, and then if you guys have questions for us, we'd be obviously happy to answer those. So I know Jody took an afternoon to stop by the pool, and certainly again encourage you guys, if you have time on a weekend, stop by anytime and wander in. If you guys want a tour by either Nick or I, we're happy to get out there with any of you anytime. So just let us know. Timeline wise, nothing's really shifted since last month. Installation of the pool continues to move forward. They're finalizing all of the final plumbing, all the electrical is going to go in. We're kind of working through some inspections through our water design team out of Salt Lake. They'll be on site next week to finalize essentially the kind of the review of all that plumbing before they lay or pour the concrete floor on both those pools. I mean, that's kind of the last big step of the pool construction. Once that concrete cures, then they put essentially the final base on that pool, and it will be ready for water when we're ready to do that. So it's the pool installation process has gone very smoothly, and we've been pretty happy with that. See how it's kind of coming along. Building inside, all going up pretty quickly. The masonry team is trying to get as much of that done as they can before the end of the year as well. They had hoped to pour sidewalks. They had a pretty short window to do that this fall, and then it got cold. So that will wait till spring. Doesn't really put anything behind, but it's just one of those things they're going to try to get knocked out before it got cold, and they didn't quite beat the weather this time. So we're still slated for April completion. Again, the hang up at this point is still that HVAC. We haven't heard anything different on that. We will meet with CM Company on Tuesday of next week to kind of go through our monthly review. Pat Walsh will be in attendance to that as well. And if we've got some additional updates, then we'll pass those through Pat, let everybody know about that stuff. These are pictures I actually took this morning, so these are current. As you can see, the HVAC ducts are all in. You can see the two large fans hanging from the ceiling that hang out over the competition pool. You are looking at the competition pool right now. You can see kind of the plumbing that pokes up right there. That's part of the plumbing with respect to the inlets where the water comes into the pool. And that's the last piece. So really what they're gonna do when they do the plumb, when they finalize that plumbing, they're actually gonna trench out and you'll see veins go out and there'll be, I'm gonna forget the number, something like 70 inlets that come up from the bottom of the pool. It's one of those unique things that help make a pool faster. It's errors if water is pushed up from the base of the pool, then you're pushing the swimmer to the surface, makes it a faster pool. Seems silly, but people believe that stuff, so we will too. Outside, they've got kind of the initial canopy up on what will be our entrance. And then that's the top left there. On the bottom right is a picture looking kind of west towards the facility. So you can see again the competition pool on the lower right, and then the program pools, the next pool there, and then in the far back would be this. You can start to see the masonry from the facility section. Here's a little bit closer shot on some of that. Top left, again, you're looking essentially at the main mechanical room in the center. You can see kind of those two silver things on the side of that, and that's actually the HVAC ductwork is for the return air. So the large squares in the bottoms where they will suck off the pool deck. So if anyone's been on a pool and you feel that chlorine in the air, that's all chloramines. And the design of the system is to push the air down and then suck it right off the surface of the pool. So that's going to suck right out of that bottom portion and gets pushed back out outside, and then return air comes in up top. So the design is exactly how we intended, and you can start to see that ductwork kind of go in there as well. Bottom right, again, we're kind of looking at the same kind of facade, but it's hard to tell because there's a lot going on there, but we're starting to see where the lobby enters into the pool, kind of the main office, and then that ductwork over to the right. Again, top left is your program pool. So that's our lesson pool. You can see all of the little tiny plumbing pieces poking up. They've completed the plumbing on this pool. So that's where all those little things that pop up will be those inlets that we talked about. And then those two large squares in the middle are the main drains. So the middle part, that's for the drainage. And then all those little things are the water that's pushing back up into the pool. Bottom right, again, just kind of looking down the corridor of what will be all of those open garage bays. Again, pretty much all but about 3 of those sections on that side of the building open up to the north side of the property, which will be fantastic. Funding and timing, these are approximate. I have not had time to go back in and really kind of get more detailed, and I owe that to Pat as well. We talked about that at our last meeting, so I'm going to try to put that together for next Tuesday for Pat to review, for Pat Walsh to review. Again, we're sitting at 18 and a half. We've played roughly 12. We're sitting at about 6.5 to finish. We do have 5.1 that's funded and sitting in our accounts. As Emery said, we paid the November invoice at 8:30. The December invoice will be due at the end of the month. It's about 1.3, and we'll cover that one as well. This is a great chart I wanted to share. This is kind of what we've run into. This is from the Wall Street Journal. This shows you kind of the percentage of increase and decrease in charitable giving over the course of the last couple of years. And you can see as we ramped up towards the end of 2020 and into 2021, people were very charitable and very giving. And right about the time we started raising money for this project, we see that line take a sharpward turn down. And so you kind of see that the percentage of people making charitable contributions as we ended in 2022 and it has certainly gone down quite a bit. And that's certainly been the obstacle we faced. And we're having success, but like we've kind of said in the past, that people want to give the project, they just want to give it smaller increments. And we're obviously hoping that trend line will kind of reverse itself and start to move north, and that'll help us as we start to finalize the capital for this project.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind me commenting, I'm on a nonprofit board up in the Ketchum area. We had a meeting on Wednesday, trading at the Sheep Festival. Had our biggest donor year in history. So you don't become discouraged by national statistics. We talked a lot about how in the world did that happen? And there's a lot of circumstances. Certainly in Idaho, there's a bunch of people moving in to retire with resources and want to participate in the community. And so don't have this in your head when you're out asking.
Don't worry, we
And
don't.
when you make the ask for more.
We don't, and we do. I'll tell you, we started this, I think, anyone who's gone through a capital campaign, those first few cold calls you make, maybe you're a little nervous about it. And then after a while, you start to learn to ask for more and more. And I think we're pretty good at the asking part. We obviously need a few more people to say yes, and we're getting there. We're starting to feel like we're making some really good headway on that. The same sort of corporate items that we've kind of hinted at the last several months, we're still really actively working with those and having active conversations with those. We're really hoping to have some more solid announcements for you after the holidays. Some of those conversations will obviously be put on hold until we get through Christmas and New Year's. With that being said, we actually do have a meeting set up again next week to start to finalize or hopefully finalize some of the potential commitment from a local school district, which will be fantastic. We did receive another $50,000 grant just this past week from the Husky Swimming Foundation, who has kind of similar goals that we do in terms of promoting competitive swimming, building facilities. So they're going to put $50,000 in our project, which is great. And then that last time there, we will, after the new year, our goal is to kind of hit that week of essentially your next business meeting here. We should have an announcement on naming rights for the facility. I guess that's all I have. Any questions for us? Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate all the support and everything, and hope everyone have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
All right, since we moved those items off the agenda to January, it's not the business of the board. Meeting adjourned.